Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of the Waiver Wire ads and streamable defenses. We are in the final week before we get to the playoffs next week. I hope you guys have already locked up your playoff spots, but you may be like me in some of my leagues where I need a win this weekend to lock in my playoff position. With that being said, you're probably looking for some waiver wire options. We got quarterbacks that are hurt, we got other players that are hurt. We have 6 teams on a bye. I don't know if the NFL did this on purpose, so that's pretty cruel, but maybe this is where it separates the good fantasy players against the average fantasy players because you got to work those buys and also work these injuries and try to put together that perfect lineup for this upcoming weekend of football. With that being said, I'm gonna dive right into my waiver wire section. Now, this week's edition is gonna have a little caveat. Before I move into my streamable defenses, I do have a comment from the YouTube section asking for me to address more quarterbacks with these injuries. And there's another part of the question I will go over as well, but I will get to that after the waiver wire section. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into tonight's video. Starting with the quarterback position, as always, my top waiver wire ad of the week. I am going to go with Jared Goff. He's available in 50% of the leagues right now. Before I dive into him really quick, if there's any first-time listeners, the players I am talking about, they have to have at least 50% roster availability on Yahoo leagues. So I am talking about names that should be out there on the market for you to go pick up. With that being said, this past weekend, Goff had 340 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's got a great matchup coming up with the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. The Vikings are allowing 18.9 points per game to quarterbacks this year. That is the 7th most across the league, and I could just see this Lions and Vikings matchup just being a barn burner, a shootout. These offenses going back and forth and putting up a lot of points on Sunday. So if you are dealing with the injury and you need to stream it, maybe you need to stream a quarterback because somebody's on a bye this week, I would go pick up Jared Goff and put him in my lineup. My running back out of the week, a guy that we thought we weren't going to probably play going forward just a month and a half ago, but then there's an opportunity that's open for him, and he took advantage of the touches that he did get this past Sunday, and that is Cam Akers. He is available in 54% of the leagues right now. This past weekend, he had 17 rushes for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, he had a reception, only 0 yards, only 1 target. With that being said, though, that's 18 touches that Akers got. He is splitting that backfield with Kyren Williams, so hopefully, if you're able to pick him up, he's able to kind of carve out more of the touches between him and Williams. With that being said, if you're looking for a running back play this week, he does have a good matchup. They're going against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. The Raiders are allowing 20.6 points per game to running backs this year. That is the 7th most in the NFL. So with a bunch of teams on bye this week, Akers is not a bad option for your lineup if you're looking for help at the running back position. Moving into the top wide receiver ad of the week, I am going to go with a name that I've talked about for 3 weeks in a row, guys. Let's try to get this number to that 50% threshold this week. But I am going to go with Nico Collins. Technically, he's kind of the leading wide receiver in Houston. It is Brandon Cooks, but Brandon Cooks missed this past game with an injury. We don't know the extent of this injury and if Cooks is going to be able to play even this week. And if he's out, that means Nico Collins is going to be the leading wide receiver for Houston on Sunday against the Cowboys. Now, looking at this past weekend, the numbers don't blow you away, right? He had 3 receptions for 35 yards on a touchdown, but he received 10 targets. Now, if him and the quarterback there in Houston, Kyle Allen, can find a way to at least get 50% of those targets, at least 60, 70, he would have had a bigger game on Sunday. Now, when you look at the last 4 games for Nico Collins, in the last 4 games, he has gotten at least 7+ targets. So he's getting a consistent volume of targets coming his way. And then if Cooks is out this weekend, they're playing the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm guessing the Cowboys are going to beat up on the Texans. So the Houston, as I said about Nico last week and previous weeks, the Texans offense is going to have to throw the ball a lot on Sunday. Now, this as far as the Cowboys defense, they are allowing 21.4 points per game to wide receivers this year. That's tied for the 12th most. So, kind of middle of the pack. But like I said, with that being said, I think Cowboys beat up on Houston. They have to throw a lot. And I think Nico Collins is worth he's worth a bench ad. And then if you are dealing with these buys this week and you need wide receiver help, he's a guy I would definitely consider in my lineup. The tight end position. You guys know how much I despise this position this year. But you know what's a crazy stat? I think it was Mike Clay from ESPN. I posted it yesterday. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert haven't played in like 3 or 4 weeks, and they're still in the top 6 points for tight ends this year. That's how bad it is, and especially when you go out there on the waivers on a week that teams are on a six teams are on a bye. But I'm starting to think Greg Dulcich would be a good streaming option. He's available in 63% of the leagues. This past weekend, he had 6 receptions for 85 yards on 8 targets. You guys know I love 8 targets for a tight end. That is a very sweet spot for me. This weekend, the Broncos are playing the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are allowing 6.9 points per game to tight ends. That's the 12th most, so that's still technically a top 1 tight end if he can reach that mark as far as in 12 team leagues, but he's getting the targets. Cortland Sutton is banged up. We're not sure as of right now if Cortland Sutton is going to play on Sunday, and if Sutton can't play, that even offers a more of an opportunity to see more volume for Dulcich against the Chiefs on this weekend. My flex out of the week, I am going to go with that rookie back out of Buffalo. He's definitely should be back on rosters going forward. He's available in 77% of the leagues. This past week, he had 14 rushes for 64 yards, 6 receptions for 41 yards on 6 targets. That is 20 touches. Obviously, you get worried about the backfield between him, Devin Singletary, and Nyheim Hines. But what I think, in my opinion, what they're doing is honestly they spent the 2nd-round pick on him, so they're going to use him. But I think they're kind of getting him prepared for the playoff run to make sure he has the playbook down. And then they're kind of, I feel like you're not seeing Singletary. I mean, he's still involved, but you're not. It's just my personal opinion. Not like I saw a coach say this, but I can see them kind of like trying to keep Singletary healthy for the playoffs as well, while trying to get Cook, make sure he's good to go in case they have to rely on him, because injuries do happen as the season comes to an end. With that being said, this weekend the Bills are playing the Jets. The Jets are only allowing 16.8 points per game to running backs this year. That is the 10th fewest. So it's not the greatest matchup in the world. But again, 6 teams are on a bye. Injuries have happened. If you're looking for running back help, after seeing 20 touches this past week, he's worth a flex play, I think, for this week. So yeah, my top quarterback out of the week, Jared Goff. Running back out of the week, Cam Akers. Wide receiver out of the week, Nico Collins. Tight end out of the week, Greg Dulcich. And James Cook is my flex out of the week. Now, like I mentioned before, I move into my streamable defenses section. I want to address a YouTube question from Ryan. Ryan asked me to highlight more quarterbacks with Lamar and Jimmy being hurt. Before I mention these 3 quarterbacks, he said he does have Trevor Lawrence. So I will say this, Ryan. As long as I don't hear no bad report, it sounds like Trevor Lawrence is going to play on Sunday. I'm going to be talking about Trevor in my starts this week in my start sit video. That's a spoiler alert. So with that being said, he says he has Lamar as well, and Lamar's banged up. Lamar's for sure going to miss this week. Honestly, if I were you, Ryan, I would just play, assuming Trevor plays, I would just play Trevor this week and hope that Lamar's back this next week. But I mean, Trevor's still a talented quarterback where I think he's going to have to be your placeholder until Lamar is hopefully back for you at some point. But if you do want to go out there and look at some quarterbacks, there's 3 names for I will go ahead and highlight for anybody that maybe missed out on a Jared Goff, or maybe there's not other better options for you. First of all, Lamar's replacement, Tyler Huntley. He's available in 99% of the leagues. He has done a solid job at filling in for Lamar just last season. The Ravens are facing the Steelers on Sunday. The Steelers are allowing 17.9 points per game to quarterbacks this year. That is tied for the 8th most in the NFL. The next one, these next 2 names are extremely roll of the dice. I'll be completely honest with that. I don't think either of these names would be because like Tyler Huntley's a potential short-term placeholder for Lamar, for those people that are managers of Lamar, because Tyler Huntley's in there for him. Once Lamar's back, you can just swap those guys. Now, if you're looking for a potential roll of the dice, taking advantage of the matchup, I don't really love it because I am going to talk about their bad offense here shortly in the next section. But with that being said, Mac Jones against the Cardinals on Monday night. Mac Jones is available in 87% of the leagues. As far as the fantasy matchup, the Cardinals are allowing 20.4 points per game to quarterbacks this year. That's tied for the third most in the NFL. So Mac has kind of got a sneaky good matchup for those that maybe miss out on some of the better quarterbacks that are available. If they don't get them on the waivers when they process overnight, then I would maybe consider Mac. And then another name, I'm going to go with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, I actually streamed him this past weekend, and I ended up still winning that matchup. He didn't do great, but he did at least what I wanted out of him. With that being said, Kenny Pickett is available in 87% of the leagues. This weekend, they're going against the Ravens. The Ravens have allowed 16.8 points per game against quarterbacks. That's the 11th most, and mainly it's because Pickett does have a rushing floor to him as well. Again, I think Mac and Pickett, they're like kind of like obviously just this week's play. If you miss out on the better options, those are names to consider. And just to kind of go into it, he also asked wide receivers impacted by these injuries with Lamar and Jimmy. I'll say this. There hasn't been any wide receiver you could trust in fantasy between Devin Duvernay or like Prochet or anything from the Ravens. So honestly, I would not be considering playing any Ravens wide receivers. Maybe let's talk about Mark Andrews. Obviously, Mark Andrews has been banged up. He hasn't really been himself when he's came back from his injury. You kind of still got to play Mark Andrews because he's going to be the leading receiver in targets in that offense. But you just got to understand it's going to be kind of a more of a I'm probably gonna have to deal with this floor until Lamar's back in the lineup. And then going to San Francisco, this definitely affects Ayuk. Not that Jimmy was pushing the ball down the field. I just don't. I just don't think Brock Purdy. I think it's going to have to be manufactured, quick slant routes off the play action. I don't know if they're going to be really going deep with him, so I think that does kind of affect Ayuk. But I am such a big believer in Kyle Shanahan. I've said this for years now. I'm pretty sure Kyle Shanahan could come up with a game scheme with me at quarterback, and I could probably reach at least 100 passing yards in his offense with him running the show. So I still think Ayuk's fine. He's definitely a name now where it's like I kind of get worried if I would play if I'm debating between him and another player. I might probably lean towards the other player unless the other player's offense is in a worse situation. It's gonna be a kind of wait and see with Ayuk going forward. I think Debo's fine because what they're gonna do is they're gonna try to get a lot of short-term game between Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuel with Brock Purdy. They're going to try to get the ball out of his hands as fast as possible, and those guys can help that out. But yeah, it's kind of. But with that being said, for the 49ers offense as a whole, it's still a wait and see because as more defenses get more tape on Brock Purdy, they're going to be able to adjust to what Kyle's doing, and then he's going to have to make his proper adjustments as well. So I hope that does answer your question, Ryan. If there's any more clarification, just get back in my comments. He did mention Kenneth Walker was hurt for him as well. If you're maybe looking to pick up a Seattle back because of Walker's injury, first of all, he still might play this week. Second of all, I would just try to go get a Cam Akers or James Cook. It's gonna be like a mixture of DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, Tony Jones. Like what I think Pete Carroll will do if Walker is unable to play Sunday, you're gonna see a running back by committee. There's not gonna be a one guy, I believe, that would end up leading in touches. If you do want to take a swing, maybe you have a bench spot. Out of the three names I talked about out of Seattle, I would lean towards DJ Dallas, in my opinion. But yeah, let's go ahead and move into my top streamable defenses. Again, these are defenses that are available in 50% of the leagues on Yahoo. And I'll say this, I hope you have a defense that you played last week that has a good matchup this week, because these defenses, as you can see, don't really have the greatest matchups in the world with these 6 teams on a bye week. But why don't I go ahead and dive into it? The easiest one to pick this week was definitely going to be the Raiders against the Rams. The Raiders are available in 88% of the leagues. Obviously, we all know the Rams are super banged up right now. They're playing with their backup quarterback, and they just claimed Baker Mayfield. It sounds like there's technically a shot Baker plays. I don't think he will unless Wolford is completely crap in the bed, if you will. But with that being said, the Rams offensive line is not the greatest. Max Crosby is a baller. Chandler Jones has really come on over the last couple weeks. I think those two are just going to blow up the pocket often, get a lot of sacks, and create potential turnovers. So the Raiders are the defense, my top streaming defense this week. My number 2, I am going to go with the Steelers against the Ravens. The Steelers are available in 72% of the leagues. A couple reasons. Again, Tyler Huntley has done fine filling in for Lamar, but he's still a backup, right? So I think the Steelers, I'm sorry, could take advantage of that. And then with that being said, the Ravens' offense hasn't really technically been lighting up the world, even with Lamar in the lineup over the last month. They are kind of going through their struggles. So, and then the Steelers they're kind of on a roll right now, winning these last two games and looking better as the week has gone on. So a backup quarterback, an improving defense against a kind of offense that's been struggling now is with their backup. I think that's the defense I would roll the dice on if you're looking for a streaming option and you can't get the Raiders. Another one, we'll go with the Titans against the Jaguars. The Titans are available in 68% of the leagues. I think I was saying earlier, Trevor's got a good matchup, but the Titans are really good against the run. This is more because in this series, the Titans have kind of always dominated the Jaguars. And with that being said, the matchups out there are not that great. You kind of just got to take a chance. And this is mainly me saying like the history of the Titans beating up on the Jaguars. Where if I were to miss out on the Raiders, miss out on the Steelers, I would consider the Titans this week. Another one I hinted at earlier. I'm going with the Cardinals against the Patriots. The Cardinals are available in 90% of the leagues. This is strictly because the Patriots offense has been struggling this season. Mac Jones hasn't been the best this season. Even though the Cardinals don't really have the greatest defense in the world, but they still have J.J. Watt. They got Budda Baker in the back end. They got guys that can potentially create turnovers for you. So if you miss out on the previous three defense, the Cardinals are the next roll of the dice for me. My number 5 one, I am going to go with the Vikings against the Lions. I don't really necessarily love this, but again, the options out there I had to pick on from the parameters I set for myself are very thin. Like I said, these 6 teams on a bye week have completely threw off this section of this video. With that being said, I see this being a shootout type of game, but Jared Goff is still always good for a turnover or two. Turnovers don't hurt you if you play him in fantasy. But with that being said, he is good maybe for a fumble, maybe a pick 6 at some point. So if I were to miss out on the other 4 defenses, I would roll the dice on the Vikings this week. So again, my top streaming defenses for week 14, I'm going to go with the Raiders against the Rams, Steelers against the Ravens, Titans against the Jaguars, Cardinals against the Patriots, and the Vikings against the Lions. So yeah, that is today's video. As always, I always appreciate anybody that has tuned in with me and stuck with me throughout the season. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button so you can always keep up with all my latest content that I'll be creating going forward. Go tell a friend about me. And if you do have any questions about anybody on the waivers that I did not cover, please go ahead and get in my comment section, get into my DM, shoot me a text. I'll gladly get back to you. And I kind of like what Ryan did, ask me a question for an upcoming video. So maybe if you have some start-sits questions for your lineup and you'd like to hear me talk about it and I can address it at the end of my start-sit video, you can put that in my comment section and I'll just add that to my video that I'll be recording that comes out on Thursday mornings. So with that being said, I'm going to hop off here. You guys enjoy your evening, your morning, whenever you're watching this. Peace out. Talk to you soon.